Have you ever been caught in a real-life conspiracy? Maybe you stumbled onto something that you shouldn't have, or maybe saw some shady dealing. I want to hear them. Worked for a large-name defense contractor for a few months, and walked in on a meeting with Russians. In school, me and 4 other boys witnessed a teacher shapeshifting from reptilian to human. It looked like she was glitching out or something. Once she was in fully human form, she froze and stared at us for about 20 seconds in silence without moving a single muscle. One of the boys started properly crying. Then, as if nothing happened, she just continued on acting normal and asked the boy if he fell and hurt himself, and that's why he was crying, then got him to sit at his desk and drink water. I remember we all told our parents, but at the time, there was a popular kids show called The Demon Headmaster on TV, where the premise was all this weird paranormal stuff was happening at a school, so our parents just shrugged it off as I was watching too much TV. I never even watched the show once. I'm still friends with one of the boys, and I tracked another boy, the crying one, on social media, and almost 30 years later, we still all agree about what we witnessed that day. I don't know what happened to the other boy. We lost contact over the years and was never able to track him down on social media. A long time ago, when I was in 7th grade, some random administrative person I've never seen before in our school came to our study hall class and told us all to put our heads down on our desks for some inspection. She had a clipboard and came around looking at the back of our necks and took notes. At first I thought this was a lice check, but I recalled that school lice checks actually involved the person combing through our hair with gloves on. Plus, the teacher would actually tell us what was going on. This situation was not the case, and after the person left, I remember no one really questioned what happened and study hall resumed as usual. I thought it was very weird that we never got an explanation for what was happening, and I went home that day, wondering what the hell that was about. I was in one actually. A conspiracy between the police and prosecutor to manufacture evidence in a politically motivated criminal trial. I was arrested at the Ambassador Bridge COVID mandate protest in 2022. They wanted me bad. They thought I was the leader of it all, but they didn't have any evidence that I ever committed any crime. 11 days before trial, the arresting officer changed the story and added details that might have been construed as commission of a crime. They were hoping I'd plead guilty or take a deal. I was offered both. I brought this switcheroo up at my trial readiness hearing a day before I was scheduled to go to trial. The judge was not impressed at all. He was very concerned. He vacated a couple of days and gave me about a week extra. The prosecutor was fucked by that point, and she basically told me, "Don't do anything, don't say anything, I'll make it go away." I'm doing this because I'm being forced from above. That trial absolutely fell apart when the arresting officer took the stand. The judge was all over him. I was all over him. It was a total shit show. He broke down and admitted the prosecutor told him to do it. And that was pretty much it. He testified, and it was a horror. The prosecutor withdrew the charges when he finished. The school I went to was for children of the wealthy who had mental disorders, autism, dyslexia, OCD, ASPD, chronic little bitch syndrome. For example, some of my classmates included the grandson of an NFL owner, the daughter of our then current governor, one of the granddaughters of a really popular 70s band, etc. In addition, a lot of non-elite but wealthy families, like those who had car dealerships in the area, a private jet company. I got in via a merit scholarship due to test scores I took at my public middle school. I was in a program similar to GATE, but not called GATE. Things that occurred at my school that was weird. Multi-year study done by Stanford and Harvard psychiatrists and psychologists that consisted of bi-weekly, full-day interviews, frequent IQ tests, and what I can only describe as a test for empathy, similar to the Blade Runner box from the book. 2 students died our senior year. No one ever discussed them. Asked history teacher once, got a blank stare back, and no answer, even though they were both in the class with me. Curriculum was weird. These were the required non-elective courses we took each year. Modern history, nothing pre-1970 was ever covered in 8 courses. Theater class, which I can only simply describe as similar to that show Nathan For You did called The Rehearsal. Just weird everyday scenarios played out. English/philosophy. We would read a book a week. Psychology, which ended up being on par with my first 2 years in university for my psych degree. Chemistry, physics, mathematics as well. Airfield, located right behind the track complex. Tunnels, mostly large steam tunnels, though there was a long maintenance tunnel that was newer than all the other ones that led to the maintenance area at the track complex. John O'Brennan gave the graduation commencement speech. 4chan lurker of 12 years. Shitposting as usual. One day, police knock on my door for a wellness check. Something about threats online. What the fuck? Few days later, FBI comes and questions me about different things I've posted on 4chan. Again, a few days later, they come back with some printout of a shitpost I made at some point. I'm just cursing Jews in the post, and I threaten to do nothing therein. They arrest me and force me in a medical hospital. Forced to receive shots of antipsychotics that are so strong, it's difficult to move. During one of the visits, one of the glowies revealed, inadvertently, he's a mod on 4chan. Continued. After I get out of mental hospital, I receive a bill in the mail for a lawyer for a court I've never been to. Figure they held some sort of trial for me without me present. Yeah, I had a friend in college who was dating a crazy woman. Like, so crazy that she destroyed her entire apartment, along with her roommate's things in a rage, because he had to work that weekend instead of hanging out with her. But the guy was a minister's son, so he was too forgiving and refused to break up with her, even though he was miserable. So we got together and planned to get him so drunk that he'd break up with her. We accomplished this by giving him straight vodka shots for a couple of hours while we were only taking shots of water. When he asked for water, we'd mix in vodka so he'd stay drunk. Eventually, he did call his girlfriend and break up with her in a drunken rage, only to black out. Years later, we realized that we probably nearly killed him because we were handing him cups of 2/3 vodka to 1/3 water. Then his girlfriend died a few weeks later. Died? What did you do, Anon? That's where our conspiracy stops and it never starts. She moved back home after the breakup and then died of tuberculosis. The strange thing is that literally the day after her family posted on Facebook that she had died, a hometown friend of hers left a post that said, "Can't wait to see you in California next week." The friend's account literally vanished after that, like she'd never even existed. My much older cousin was a tape trader in the mid-90s. His dad also ran a pit mill and did dogfighting. It was peak white trash Americana. My cousin got hold of any shocking or transgressive tapes he could, whether it was something as relatively tame as anime tapes, long forgotten backyard wrestling tapes, poorly recorded live metal shows, etc. He also traded for very extreme porn and even snuff films, but for his credit, never ever shared that with the younger cousins. We found them on our own. This hobby of his eventually exposed him to the extreme occult and violent gangs, particularly a satanic gang somewhere in the United States. Cut forward a bit. Through the mid-90s, up until 2012, he remains a major tape trader, even slowly learning in his own way how to better preserve these films and even some restoration of them. He has been a missing person since 2014. He left me many of his tapes, and when he left them, he was flustered. He was sweating and ignoring what the conversation was. He just kept saying how much he fucked up. After he pulled out, in his green 4-door 2006 Honda Civic, I heard him accelerate as fast as the pedal would allow. I've watched every VHS tape that he left, over and over, but what he left me were all nice tapings of things like 90s anime OVAs or some old South Park episodes. I have no doubts they killed him. I just sometimes wonder what he did or found, or traded, to make them even target him. Studied emergency management in school, but never got a job in it. COVID happens. No shit is about to hit the fan when the PEOC, Provincial Emergency Operations Center, tells everyone to go home for a few days. Immediately tell my director what's going to happen. He ignores me. Watch the entire time as more and more totalitarian measures are being passed by the government, but no one is listening to me. Start telling people that social isolation is absolutely not the right way to handle the situation and will cause more harm than good. No one listens to me. Explain how masks won't do shit because they are meant to be worn for like an hour in a contamination zone, and the proper way is to assess the mortality of the virus and build up natural immunity like humans have done for every other virus in history. Watch as the Emergency Management Act is enacted to give the government unlimited power to contravene all established laws, to do whatever the fuck they want during the trucker protests. No one listens to me warning them. My own mother refused to talk to me, even though I was off work and struggling with depression over my extremist views. Eventually, it all subsides. Everyone realized everything was bullshit and laws were being abused that were meant for nuclear fucking explosions and hostile military attacks. I'm just a shell of a man that I was before all of that, and everyone expects me to pretend like nothing happened, even though I lost 2 years of my life and was gaslit by every fucking person I loved simultaneously because I knew exactly what should be done and no one would listen. These aren't really 100% personal, but I will share them anyway. First one. I was on Reddit, r/conspiracy. Rookie mistake, I know, years ago. And some guy was posting about how Rishi Sunak would become the UK Prime Minister before anyone ever even knew who he was. I was interested, so started DMing him, and he said that he worked at some kind of political firm / office with Sunak, and he saw WEF agents approaching him. Fast forward to now, and Sunak is the PM, and all the posts and accounts related to this have been scrubbed. Second one. When Pizzagate was starting to take off, people found a password-protected page on the Comet Ping Pong website. Debunkers claim it's fake, but I can 100% confirm that it was real. I personally accessed it during the few hours it remained up. Australian guy here. My family came to the country via boat from Britain as part of the £10 Pommy scheme. A few years ago, my folks and I visited England and tracked down some people and places from their past. And Mom took us to a place called the Oddfellows Arms, Grandpa's local watering hole. The original owners have long since retired, but the new management heard Grandpa's name and called the old proprietor directly. The gent dropped everything and traveled there from 3 towns away just to meet us and talk to Mom. Color me curious. I did some digging as to why Grandpa might be so important. Turns out in Australia, Grandpa became a head of his local union and did a lot of activism for his local community, above and beyond the norm. He was very good at networking. The British pub's name itself is very interesting too. There is/was an organization called the Society of Oddfellows from the 1700s, perhaps earlier, in Britain, comprised of conscientious men from all levels and roles of society who would meet periodically for the betterment of their community and society as a whole. Guess where they met? The pub. There were Oddfellows pubs dotted all around the place. Story has it that what started as a chummy gathering of good men turned into somewhat of a precursor to the Freemasons. TLDR, my grandfather left his home country suddenly. He always floated to the top of his social and professional groups, and the pub he frequented was basically a branch of the Freemasons. Was he kicked out? Sent to start a new branch in Australia? I don't know. All I do know is that Grandpa was a popular man who was always very lucky with his investments. Everything else seems to have died with him. About a decade ago, some random person started messaging me on Reddit. Said a bunch of obtuse stuff that didn't really mean much to me, involving antinatalists and philosophy. I just played dumb because I'm of the opinion that if someone wants me to be intrigued, they need to actually back it up. Being flighty and enigmatic isn't enough on its own. Eventually, they linked me to some Discordian shit, which was interesting, but didn't really do much for me and gave off boomer vibes. I almost stopped caring, but I started seeing Fenords or something like it in real life. Imagine, like, you think about potatoes, then immediately find one on the sidewalk in front of you. Not too scary on its own, right? Well, imagine seeing something like that happening multiple times a day for weeks. Might get you a bit shook. They said something about how someone shouldn't play with fire and ghosted me along with my newfound existential crisis. And looking back on it, some of the things they said resemble a sort of retroactive insult. Like, they were referring to things that hadn't even happened yet. The downside is the whole thing really shook my worldview, and I had to reevaluate how things work. But the upside is now I know things like that can happen, and I've sussed out how any of it works as well as I can in the abstract. The silver lining is they no longer sound very intimidating. I don't know who's not supposed to be playing with fire, but I've done at least a dozen things in my life, good and bad, that could each individually be enough to piss someone off, depending on their sensibilities. So if they were talking about me, they missed the mark, and some of the meta-contextual shit didn't quite come together. I'ma play with fire just to piss you off now, you hack. My current theory is that someone was trying to test out their predictive analytics on me. It sounds like someone was trying to gaslight you into a mental breakdown, potentially for MK Ultra shit. In Canada, specifically Toronto, we have protocol in place since 2002 for exactly this sort of thing because we lived through SARS. We had stockpiles of hydroxychloroquine, which is designed to mitigate air-based infections. We spent over $10 billion during the G20 protests on having a highly securitized police force capable of containing large groups of people, monitoring them, and moving them to staging areas. A response could have been coordinated in as little as 24 hours, where the larger population centers were isolated to prevent infection in smaller areas with physical checkpoints. It's in our fucking emergency response plan. We had that cruise ship as an incubation zone so we could observe what happened to get an idea of the mortality rate. A slow response is worse than no response because it allows people to breach containment, and while containment could fail over time, it gives you more time to stage your response in layers to protect people in lower risk zones. You're right. There was a massive, coordinated disinformation campaign about it, and it caused lower level civil servants to lose their nerve and act stupid. But this is why they're paid so much money in the first place, to make hard decisions that cost people their lives. In my opinion, it was all bullshit because the security measures they put in place were designed to demoralize people, not protect them. Waiting in massive food lines, rather than having a nice neat schedule, is asinine and asking for infection. Haircuts have nothing to do with fucking anything. Masks that aren't N95 do not work. There is no reason you can't buy clothes in a department store where you needed one-way traffic through the aisles. A little piece of plastic between you and the cashier isn't going to do shit. There was monitoring, but the safe benchmarks and staged PPE relative to infection never happened. There was zero communication with the public about what was real and what was fake news. It makes me so fucking mad that people died alone, had their mental health ruined, and were medically fucked, while big dick government had zero interest in protecting anything other than providing the appearance of protecting people. All they did was liquidate all our fucking gold and act like petty tyrants. Autumn of 2010. Working security overnights at a state park in upstate NY. During the off-season, so there is literally no one there, except for the overnight maintenance watchman. He was off sick this night, I remember, and one single old dude who lives on his ready houseboat in the marina. I'm the only security person. It's like mid-November, so it's cold as shit. Leaves are all gone from the trees. Drive my parked truck down the lonely roads along the lake, looking at the drab winter trees like skeletons. It's lonely and creepy as shit. Keep the heat blasting in my truck. I just make my round along the same empty park roads and chug coffee I make my rounds of checking park offices and restrooms, make sure all the doors are locked. I check the maintenance building, which is dark and empty, and suddenly, for some strange reason, I get super lonely and wish the overnight maintenance dude was there. This is strange, because the guy has the personality of a hot rat turd and never speaks one word to me. Make rounds down furthest back road in the park, a very narrow and winding dirt road leading back to the park dumpster, forest heavy on both sides. I don't know, normally none of this bothers me. The park is severely dead this time of year, but the way the trees are looking tonight is creeping me out. Damn skeleton night trees. As I'm making my way back down this dirt road toward the main park road, I slam on the brake. Very nearly shit my pants. Massive, big rig semi-truck is traveling down the park road, literally right in front of me. Very slowly, almost creeping, and the driver has his headlights off. Oh, and the truck is literally fucking silent, like no noise at all. The whole sight was creepy as shit. Get behind it. Follow it, as no one is allowed in the park after dark. Truck heads all the way to the far side of the park. Stops in the largest overflow parking lot used in the height of the summer when the park is packed with people. Just sits there, totally dark. I'm sitting there in my truck, high beams pointed on this random dark semi that just drove in. Probably some trucker, tired of shit and out of hours, looking to sleep for the night. But what the fuck? He can't sleep here. It's literally my job to tell the trucker he needs to leave. Sit in my truck for a long time, hoping the big rig will get the hint and drive away, but he doesn't. Shit. Sigh, and get out of the heat of my truck into the freezing cold and approach the semi to tell the dude he needs to leave. Oh, by the way, I'm totally unarmed. All I have is a flashlight and a cell phone. Nearest park police are an hour away. Nearest sheriffs are 20 minutes away, at least. Here we go. As I approach the cab of the truck while shining my flashlight on it, I can hear very heavy breathing, almost growling coming from inside. I swallow hard. Make it to the steps leading up to the driver's door. Heavy growl breathing seems to be becoming more intense. Can also hear a very weak and high-pitched sort of squeaking, almost like a mouse. Nah, fuck this. Don't know if someone is fucking in there or what, but this is a clusterfuck. I don't feel like walking into all alone and unarmed. Job only paid like $12 an hour anyway. Was not about to die for that shit. I bitched out, turned tail, and walked back to my truck and drove away. As I got back on the main park road, I felt so suddenly, overbearingly lonely that I decided to pay a visit to the old dude who lived in his boat in the marina on the opposite end of the park. Dude was in his 70s, lived in his boat all year round, even in the dead of winter when it can get -10. Marina closes in October, but dude worked out some deal with park manager where he could pay extra to live year round. Only met him once at that point, and he told me he stays up most nights drinking beer and to stop by if I ever felt like it. Never actually took him up on it before this night. Sure enough, one single boat sitting lonely in the marina, surrounded by empty docks all around it, but it has a light on. Walk up to the door. Old dude's name was Rod. He welcomes me in. We begin to shoot the shit. He says he saw the truck come in on the park road and wondered if I saw it too. Offers me a beer. I know I shouldn't drink on the job, but I was just so freaked out by the truck that I took him up on it. Begins to tell me all kinds of weird stories that supposedly took place in that park over the years. A female who worked my job, overnight security, back in the 80s, up and quit the job in tears one night, saying the park was haunted. Think nothing of it. Sounds really vague and kind of dumb anyway. Rod then tells me how back in the 20s and 30s, the local KKK used to have a hanging tree behind the current maintenance building where they used to hang black people. Said they used to bleed them out like deer. What the fuck? I didn't even think the KKK existed in New York, but apparently they used to be huge here. We talked for hours, end up getting pissed drunk and passing out on his couch. Wake up just before 6 a.m. when my shift ends. Rod is passed out in his chair. As I leave, I drive by this overflow parking lot, see the semi-truck is gone. Forget it, until later that day, I read on Facebook that a 17-year-old local girl is missing. Last seen at a bar in town, where she apparently used a fake ID to get in. Okay, whatever. Except the bar happens to be right next door to a truck stop that serves for truckers all over the country. I shit bricks. This was 7 years ago, and the girl was never found, still declared missing. I have no clue if there was any connection with the truck I saw creeping into the park that night, but I can't help but wonder what would have happened had I knocked on that truck cab door. Still think about it regularly. Quit that job like 6 months after that. Be me, 7 to 8 years old. Have this aunt who tends to take me with her to do shopping and stuff around the town. She is well known in town, and people often invite her to their houses. She is also known for being into magic and weird stuff. Mom once told me she found a voodoo doll when she and my aunt used to share the same bedroom. One Sunday, we go visit one of her friends. Old house, 2 floors, rustic, lots of trees on the property. We go inside. 3 p.m. Plenty of light outside, but for some reason, the house is very dark inside. No lights on. We go to the 2nd floor. Aunt greets friend, old lady, and they start talking. Notice 2 kids sitting on a couch watching TV. Can only see their backs. Aunt goes with friend to one of the rooms as they continue talking. I just stand there, watching the 2 kids and the TV. Suddenly, the kids stand up and start staring at me. There is this sort of green slime coming out of their mouths. They start chewing the green slime in a weird way as they keep staring directly at me. There is green slime all around their mouths and jaws, even some dropping onto the floor. Don't know how to react, but I know I'm terrified. Run downstairs in fear. Wait there alone for around 20 minutes until I hear my aunt coming. We walk off the house. Never mentioned a word to anyone. Didn't ask my aunt about the place or the people. 25 now. Still get the chills when I remember this. To this day, I don't know what that was, but it was pretty fucking scary. The kids looked very weird, and I still could not explain what that green slime was that was coming out of their mouths. Be me. Have an Asperger's brother. He's kind of a nut job. Not in the stupid way, but in the freaky way. Always say pseudo, neo-Nazi shit. Jokes around all the time about killing people. He's in high school. I'm in college. Summer break. I decide to go back home to hang out with my family. We go to my brother's room to play video games. His room looks like a pig lived in it. Plates everywhere. Crumpled up paper. Half-eaten food. I smell something nasty behind the dresser. He goes to the washroom to take a piss. I investigate behind the dresser. There is a fist-sized hole in the wall. I take out my cell phone and use the flashlight option. I start to get sick. There is a severed, rotten hand in the hole, and a knife covered in old, brown bloodstains. Earlier this year, somebody went missing in this neighborhood. I put 2 and 2 together. My brother comes back. He sees me looking in there. He takes out his pocket knife and threatens to kill me and all of our family if I tell anybody at all. Past few weeks, he tries to keep an eye on me. Summer break is over. Head back to college out of town. Still haven't told anybody at all.